need to know. I want to talk now about a guy called Tom DeLonge, who's probably been one of the most unfairly maligned people in the field of UAP UFO research. Tom was, until a few years ago, the lead singer of the very popular punk pop band Blink 182. Now, he always had an interest in UFOs, UAPs. And around about 2015, 2016, in the run-up to the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump election campaign, he started taking a very prominent position in asserting that he was in touch with people at the highest levels of the Department of Defense, the National Security Agency, the military, the intelligence services in the United States. And he was making a series of what sounded like wild claims that he was being briefed about things pertaining to UAPs. He made some absolutely extraordinary assertions. According to him, he was being told that there had been some kind of presence of what these people called the others on planet Earth for thousands of years, that it was linked back to ancient civilizations that were the precursors even before the Sumerian civilization, that there was in fact a group known as the Anunnaki that had basically visited planet Earth that essentially were involved in encouraging the creation of intelligent human beings and civilization, that they seeded the planet with culture, with learning, with scientific knowledge. This all sounded very, very wild, and a lot of people chuckled and dismissed Tom DeLonge. So why do I think Tom DeLonge is important in the narrative of recent UAP history? Well, I can tell you the reason I think Tom DeLonge is important is because of a bunch of Russian hackers from a military intelligence service in Moscow called the GRU. This is an incredible story, and I think it's been overlooked by a lot of people in ufology, because the GRU, the Russian intelligence service, were trying to help, even though a lot of people may dispute this, they were genuinely trying to help Donald Trump win the election campaign. And in the course of that battle, they hacked into the DNC, the Democratic National Committee's email system, and they procured emails showing that John Podesta, who was one of the senior campaign officials for Hillary Clinton, a former Barack Obama and Bill Clinton White House senior advisor, John Podesta was in touch with Tom DeLonge, talking about UFO disclosure. And I talk to anyone who's prepared to listen about this, because I think this is extraordinarily significant. Because in journalism, what you look for is you look for corroboration. And here we have, ironically, as a result of determined criminal hacking by Russian intelligence, we have evidence in the form of emails which shows that Tom DeLonge really was speaking to people who were at a senior level in the Pentagon, in the Department of Defense, and in the intelligence services. One of them was a guy called General Neil McCasland, and another one was a guy called General Michael Carey. Neil McCasland used to be at what is apocryphally known as the Foreign Technology Division in the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was one of the senior generals who handled, if you like, the back engineering of recovered non-American technology. And apocryphally, mythically, that's the place where a lot of the alleged recovered non-human technology has been taken from places like Roswell and other alleged UAP crashes. If anyone knows where the bodies are buried in ufology, it's General Neil McCasland. And the other person is General Michael Carey. Michael Carey was based out of NORAD, which is the cooperative body between Canada and the United States that does early warning of intercontinental ballistic missiles, but also is tapped into a worldwide monitoring system for not just ICBM launches, but also for any evidence of orbital technology that is not part of America's technology. It was primarily aimed, of course, of keeping an eye on the Russians, the Chinese, and the North Koreans, and perhaps also any other nation like the Indians and the Pakistanis that might be attempting any kind of improper use of nuclear technology. What's very, very interesting is that we know from those leaked emails that were provided to WikiLeaks that you can still read online, and you can read about them in my book. It's just the most extraordinary series of evidence which shows definitively that Tom DeLonge was in touch with senior people, as he asserted that he was. He was being briefed by them, told incredible things. And I think this is the important thing for me, Bryce. I think in the run-up to the Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump election, my hypothesis is that people in the Defense Department, in the American intelligence community, strongly believed that Hillary Clinton was going to be the new president. Nobody thought it was possible that Donald Trump was going to win the presidency. And they were anticipating that Hillary Clinton was going to become the president, and so they were preparing for her to be what she'd promised to be, which was the disclosure president.
That's a good theory, and I think it's probably true because obviously a lot of people knew that she was into that, and I think a lot of people obviously did not think that Trump was going to win. But that's not the question I had. The question I have is, I love hearing you explain all that and how these very high-level people who would know where the bodies literally are buried or put away and where the ships are and things like that, who are high-level people, why would they confide in such an unreliable messenger as Tom DeLonge? I mean, we talk about message discipline in the business, and people, who are, meeting the news and making news, and politicians, everybody's got message discipline where they know what they're supposed to say, what they're not supposed to say. Tom DeLonge doesn't seem to have any message discipline. He just is out there. He says what he's going to say. Okay. Why pick him?
Okay, I have a theory about this, and this is only speculative. But in the emails, it's quite clear that on occasion, and Tom's actually admitted this in some of his many interviews on the subject, he was prepared to allow what he said publicly to be vetted and approved. He was offering himself essentially as a communications mouthpiece for the defense and intelligence services in your country. And a journalist, a mainstream journalist like myself or yourself, we could never agree to such terms. You don't compromise your ability to freely report on something by allowing your message to be tempered by the people who are telling it to you. Because I do believe, I really do, I do believe that crimes have been committed, and I'm not suggesting it was General Neil McCasland or General Michael Carey, but somebody inside the defense or intelligence hierarchy, and probably also in private aerospace in the United States, has been lying, actively misleading government. And those are crimes. It's a contempt of the Congress to mislead a congressional oversight committee.
It totally is.
That's what I believe has happened here.
And I think I agree with you on that. But I still, at the end of the day, frankly, I like Tom DeLonge. I don't really know his music very well, but I've enjoyed hearing him talk on the air and all of that. But if the point was he was willing to stick to the message that was cleared by his handlers, then I just flash back to so many different interviews he did. But no, most notably, he did one with Joe Rogan on Joe Rogan's show very early on in his launch. And he was talking about things that I can't even imagine the Air Force or the Navy or anyone at the Department of Defense thought he should be talking about, unless there was another agenda, that they wanted him to stray so far from the reservation that it accomplished something else. But that's just my question and theory. But I do have another question about him. He started the To the Stars Academy, which I think most people will admit was very effective in the day. And at the beginning, it managed to cooperate with those videos, and it brought in a lot of people, Elizondo and Mellon and Justice and all these names of people who were deeply inside the government and knew things. After such an auspicious start, those people are gone now. What happened to DeLonge and his TTSA, and why is he now in the Witness Protection Program of ufology?
Okay, I think, and we'd better wrap this up soon because I want you to talk about John Lennon in the next segment, but I think that it's because fundamentally TTSA, To the Stars Academy, was conceived in expectation of a Hillary Clinton victory. It's quite clear, and I advise anybody who's interested in the history of this to look at the Podesta emails that are leaked onto WikiLeaks. And they show very, very clearly that General Neil McCasland was actually talking to the potential Hillary Clinton White House campaign manager, policy advisor, about how the message of disclosure could be communicated to the American public. It's quite clear to me that Hillary Clinton was going to order the files to be opened and the doors to be opened, transparency to happen on UAPs shortly after she became president. And I think it all fell in a heap when Donald Trump became president.
It's clearly one of the great what ifs of history. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What if that had happened? Where would we be now? And what happened instead when it was Trump? Did anyone even talk to him about it? What happened?
Oh, I think Trump was briefed. I think Trump was told something because, as you recall, his son, Don Trump Jr., did an interview with him shortly before the election where he asked his dad about Roswell. Dad, what's all this stuff about UFOs? And his father intimated that he knew something about Roswell. And he went, that's very interesting. But I can't talk about that.
Well, if anyone has ever demonstrated a lack of message discipline that could rival Tom DeLonge, it might be Donald Trump. So, they were both in interesting positions. I don't know. There's more to know about this. I look forward to us in the future revisiting who knew what, when, and what the plan was and how it's changed.